Welcome, data people. We are Zoomer. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zoomer. Zoomer is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Federico Branchetti, Risk, Products, and Engineering Lead at Grover. Federico, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. What about you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. For those who don't know and aren't aware, be shocked if they don't, but can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So, I am Italian, as you may infer from my accent. My background is in economics, and then I studied management here in Berlin, and then I started working in risk at Grover. So I take care of the product area and the engineering area that are related to risk, and let's say with the main goal of preventing credit and fraud risk against Grover. So, yeah.
Amazing. And we're going to tap into that wisdom and hopefully share some useful insights. Kick it off with a strong question. So, why we're here to talk about AI in risk. So, why are we using what is considered quite a risky technology in such a fragile area like risk and fraud?
So I would say there are two answers. I would say or two different ideas. The first idea is that the one that is a bit more user-centric, so that maybe cover product, is that the expectation of the customer are being more and more demanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the customer really want you to get back to them as soon as possible, right? Like having an underwriting process that involve a human is, of course, a challenge against this.
Yeah.
So, let's say machine learning algorithm comes very handy when you're trying to, being fast in replying and decide on, let's say, if accepting a loan or not. The second area is really about the decision making itself. We know humans are very good at a lot of things, but we also know that we have certain areas where we are a bit lacking. And the quantitative area are specifically tough, right? For us, especially at scale. What we observed, at least at Grover, is that when we are trying to prevent fraud, when we are trying to prevent credit default, we can deploy a mix of capabilities. The human capabilities, which are super important and that are very difficult to replace fully, but also the machine learning one. So we try to target different area of fraud, different area and aspect of credit default with these two different tools. It gives us the opportunity to call out certain fraud buckets and certain credit default bucket that humans can't really. So, yeah.
Okay, so it might sound like magic to some people who aren't in the domain. What's actually happening? What work is going on behind the scenes?
All right. So let's say for human, it's simpler, right? Like they will see a lot of data that are related to the customer and to the application. And they will take a decision based on their experience, based on their, let's say, based on our credit policy and so on, right? So our underwriting. For the machine learning aspect, it's similar, but of course, before there is a lot of training and a lot of kind of investigation of pattern, and not only through, let's say, human eyes, right? So through the data scientists that are training the model, but the model itself. So we will feed our models with a lot of data, and we will identify some pattern that will be otherwise very difficult to spot, right, and balance against each other. So this is basically what is going on behind. There is a lot of time spent and invested in the data itself and the training to reach a final algorithm that we are fine for deployment, let's say.
Why are we investing so much time in this?
Yeah, so I think the whole idea is that there are, again, speed. We want to underwrite in a very fast way. And also, we want to catch good customer and bad customer utilizing a slightly different approach than the one that human will use, right?
Yeah.
We want to, we know that humans will catch certain type of fraud, right? We know that they will spot very specific type of connection and so on. But we also know that they will miss some of them, right? And what do we do when that happens? Well, we try to compensate with machine learning. We try to use machine learning, well, both. I mean, when I say compensate, it's not only compensate, it's also a bit of replicating what is happening also in other area, but especially trying to cover all the gaps that we miss before. And this is iterative, right? Like we have a model, a version 1, and we say, okay, we are catching this area, we are catching this froster, right? And then some time pass, now we have new froster, we have new pattern that we can identify, and we can release a version 2 and so on and so forth. So it's kind of it's a journey.
Are you keeping ahead of fraud, or the fraudsters, shall we say, or are they forcing your hand in innovation?
Well, they are definitely good, but for us at the moment, we are quite satisfied with the level of prevention that we reach. It doesn't mean that we are perfect. It always there is always a new pattern. There is always a new kind of ways for them to attack. And I mean, keep in mind every time we release a patch, they will sort of understand that, right? Like it's not going to take maybe one day, it's not going to take a couple of weeks, but at some point they will understand how to get around. And that's why it's also super important to keep monitoring the situation, to involve a certain amount of um, human attention in the process. Because I mean, models are a bit delicate, as you mentioned at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
And in particular, you cannot just, let's say, prepare a new measure against a type of fraud that you're looking at and just deploy it, right? You will need to test, you will need to train a new model. This requires some time. So in the meantime, what we try to do, or at least the way we do it here, we identify the risk, and we kind of intervene with heuristic. So very simple, if the name of the customer is Matt. Of course, we don't do this, but just an example.
So it sounds like a bit of a dance with the fraudsters ongoing. When things are going well, things are quiet, everything seems great. How do you it's not cheap running this. How do you justify the costs when it's all going well?
Well, let's say for risk, it's relatively simple because the cost of, let's say, the cost of producing an inference, it's not significant when compared to the risk of losing an asset for us, right? You can imagine a MacBook, iPhone, they're relatively expensive items. So from the risk point of view, it's always very simple. I guess it's a lot more difficult in other area, right? When you step in commercial, when you step in marketing, then that's where costs like these ones become important.
So when they are, what are the challenges that you're facing in this area?
I will say specifically when we talk about machine learning and when we talk about data, one challenge for sure is identify the new pattern and having a reliable way of flagging misbehavior, right? At the end of the day, your machine learning model needs to be optimized to reach a goal. And if that goal is not well, let's say if that goal is not clear enough, then your model will not really target it. So one big challenge for sure is having a good and reliable way of flagging the behavior that we don't like, and having a reliable way of linking that to payment behavior specifically. So when is it that we're talking about fraud? When is it that we're talking about credit default? And also when we talk about fraud, which type of fraud it is. And in this way, we can have sort of different ways to identify the pattern that we're seeing.
Are you looking for fraud, or are you looking for like specific types of fraud, or are you looking for a change in usual behavior?
Yeah, so all of them in theory.
Okay.
Let's say when we talk about fraud, we are typically fighting two main type of that. We have the first party and we have the third party. So the first party fraud is when someone just come with their real name, with their real address, that they're real customer, like real people, and they place an order with no intention of paying, right? Like they're requesting something, but they know from the very beginning that they will not pay. And then we have third-party fraud, which is, can we say, simple term, impersonating someone else, right? So I will place an order and I will use your name, I will use your address, I will use your credit card, and so on and so forth. So these are two very different and distinct behavior, and they have very distinct pattern. So it's a bit of a challenge for us to separate them and using the right tool for each.
Okay, so how do you keep moving forward in innovating and keeping on the front foot?
So there are definitely, I will think about two ways in general. One is, let's say, keep an eye on the market, keep an eye on the new tools that are being released, keep talking with peers in the industry, right? This is absolutely critical. But on the other side, and I think that's something that I mean, at this point I stress it and I like to stress, we do have a human team. We do have a fraud team, a credit team. They do look at the data. They do look for pattern, and they are, let's say, ready for pick new challenge, right? So new challenges. So this is, I think, one of the key of being ahead of roster is really not let them exploit the system that you have, but have a good alerting system in place.
So it sounds like this is a supporting technology as opposed to a replacement technology.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we will reach a point where 100% of the decision can be made by a machine or machine learning in general. I think there will always be a portion where it makes a lot of sense to have a human involved, either for approving or for declining, right? Like these two outcomes that coexist and are relevant for our stakeholder.
Outside of Grover, do you think in the industry it's something that they're pushing for? Is that the end goal for risk and fraud, to replace humans and take it out of our hands?
I don't think I perceive this in the industry. I always see this as a support for our decision makers, right? Like, so for us specifically, it's always about releasing as much time as possible from our peers to make sure that they have as much time as possible to investigate the important cases, the relevant cases, the new pattern, right? So do what we call proactive investigations, not just react. And I think machine learning play a big role here because we can really support and what to say, scale fraud detection developed by human at the end.
Is regulatory regulation also playing a part here?
Well,
How
I would say
much of
in
a
Europe,
part are they playing?
yeah, it's a big part for sure. You need to be aware, especially in the credit industry, there are quite some limitations which are very important to ensure that all the mechanisms in the credit industry are fair and treat people with let's say all the customer in a similar way as much as possible. I think on one end it's challenging because maybe you may expect certain data to be relevant.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to fingerprinting, for example, like following the fraudster, maybe you're limited because you can't how to say, you can't collect as many how can we call it, let's say traces as the one that you would like to. But at the same time, I mean, this is part of what we do at Grover. That our idea is to really allow everyone to get the technology that they need, and in a sense also allow as many people as we can that are typically rejected by other credit institutions, right? So for us, it's super important, the legislation, and also I think we welcome the latest decision about Shufa. I don't know if you heard, there were some, say, the International Court of Justice, or was it EU? Okay, now I'm not super sure about which organ, but according to the European Union, Shufa shouldn't be used as a single decision point. So for us, this is in a sense good news because it validates the way we are scoring customer using a lot of sources and including our own machine learning model. And on the other side, I think it speaks about this movement in the market toward a very specific direction, which is to protect the customer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we like to have good faith in regulation, that it's there for the right reasons. It's external, it's going to slow us down, but we accept that. What about internally? So there's that perception that risk and risk management is a hindrance to business growth. What's your point of view?
Yeah, well, internally, it's always a bit of let's say it's always interesting to see how we are perceived depending on the market condition, depending on let's say the latest result and so on. It's very simple, I would say, to point toward risk when the conversion is not working as expected, right? But at the same time, it becomes let's say everyone look at risk with a lot of confidence and kind of with high expectation when we see that, for example, the market conditions shift to sustainability, right? Then suddenly everyone is really afraid that we may underwrite the wrong people, right? And they eventually support us. So I think there was a big switch here before when money were free. No one was really understanding why we were not throwing money away, right? And now it's very clear that we are doing it to protect the company. So we are getting auto support. I will add, and this is for, I think it's something that I saw a lot and heard a lot from peers in the industry. I think there is also a lot of work that should come from the risk management in kind of helping the rest of the company in understanding this, right? Like it's not, let's say, preventing risk, preventing fraud is not the risk team responsibility. Not only, it's everyone's responsibility, and keeping this idea in mind when, I don't know, when a product manager prepare and scope a new project, when someone from commercial prepare a new campaign, and so on and so forth. Keep in mind that we do face credit risk, that we do face fraud risk. It's something that it's our responsibility as well, right?
Yeah, the saying, you only see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, comes to mind when you were sharing that. So what's the trade-off? How do you keep them happy by facilitating innovation while, you know, holding the brakes a little bit and just making them realize that we might go a little bit slower, but we'll go a lot further? How do you have that? How do you educate that trade-off?
I think for us it's very important to justify what's happening, right? Like to really give explanation and kind of make them aware about the expectation around a certain customer, around a certain type of customer. So saying, okay, we are declining Federico because this and that and that, and we believe that customers like Federico have an higher chance of causing a loss to our business, right? I think it's, for us, this is the most important point, right? Like communicating to the rest of the business that we are in charge of this, and that we are on top of it, that we can, you know, that we can deliver metrics for this, that we can justify each single decision, and that we can provide on any given moment to say a projection and say, okay, if you feel like you want to undertake more risk, then we can do it, and we can do it in this way and this way and that way. You feel we should take less risk, then we can do, you know, these are the options. So this, I think, is the key, the communication, kind of as always.
It sounds like you're an advocate for structure is freedom. Have you heard that before?
No, it's new.
It's kind of like the concept that if you're given unlimited options, you become a slave to the choice. Whereas if you have more structure, you tend to you become more creative and have more freedom when there's more rules. Do you think that aligns with what you're working with, or am I am I way off the point?
I think in a way it's true, right? Like if you can, I mean, from my experience with let's say senior management, what I see is problems come, and that they can become very relevant when your communication is not effective, right? When you can't express what is your plan, what is your vision, what is it that you are doing on day to day, right? And especially when it comes to operations that are affecting the P&L, right? So in a sense, I think having structure around your processes and having a effective way to communicate a structure and making everyone that is interested aware and participant in a sense, it's the way to go. The other way around, having everyone to kind of challenge everything all the time, it just causes a lot of noise, and it's not really helpful.
Absolutely. Let's bring this home and summarize. If someone's pointing the finger at risk and fraud, and saying you're just an expensive cost center,
Mm-hmm.
how would you respond?
Well, let's imagine how expensive it will be not to have us.
Amazing. And yeah, I appreciate you joining us today, Federico. If people want to hear more about you, more about Grover, where can they go, and what have you got coming up?
You can totally follow us on LinkedIn, and also if you're interested in data, I would say keep an eye on our career website. I think it's grover.careers or something similar,
Yeah,
because some data position will probably open at the beginning of New Year. So in the beginning of New Year. So yeah, keep an eye on that.
nice. In your team or is across the company?
Also in my team, yes. I would say machine learning and data scientists, we definitely want to invest and we want to double down on this area.
Okay, nice. Is domain experience necessary or just passion for data science
I
and
would
now
say for now, we are a bit more looking into profile with seniority,
okay.
but you're always welcome to apply, and maybe you don't think that your background is relevant,
Yeah,
but maybe we see something that you don't. So yeah, please apply anyway.
who knows? Who knows? Well, yeah, we'll appreciate you and appreciate you joining us today, Federico. Yeah, for those who are listening, please like and share. I think less than 60% of our listeners actually follow us. So yeah, do keep up to date with the episodes. But it is bye from us. Thanks once again, Fabio. Ciao.